Oh, of course I don't have a cold open because I'm dumb. All right.
They're the hardest part to write.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really, every once in a while, something just pops right off.
Yeah. Sometimes they, yeah, I have the same experience. But then sometimes I'm like, what am I gonna write for the cold open? This could be our cold open.
Yes, this could be our cold open. You want this to be our cold open? You've got FunFactor, two old gamers reviewing old video game magazine reviews. I'm Ty Shelter, he's Aiden Moher, and we're two professional writers who grew up loving the games and video game magazines of the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. Every episode, we take a critical look back on the games media that, for better and for worse, inspired us to do what we do. Before anything else, go to funfactorpod.com and follow the show on your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a rating or review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your media. We'll read the best, kindest, funniest, and most insightful ones on the air in our letters section. Please consider becoming a member of FunFactor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord. Just go to funfactorpod.com and I promise you cannot miss our sign-up widget. Then, help us spread the word. Shout us out on Blue Sky at funfactorpod.com and everywhere else at FunFactorPod. Aiden, as we sort of informally progress through 1995, 1996, and into 1997, we're seeing games get more and more expensive. Between the immense anticipation for hot new Japan-made consoles and games that would take months or even years to arrive stateside, and the Nintendo 64 sticking with first-party manufactured cartridges, retailers and importers were putting huge numbers on price tags. If you think $80 for Mario Kart World is expensive in 2025, kids, try paying the same amount for Mario Kart 64 in 1996 dollars, which were about double what they are today. So, by the end of 1996, video games were more expensive than they'd ever been, and maybe ever will be. I have a distinct memory of being thrilled I got basically everything I asked for at the big family Christmas, and then looking back at my huge haul to see like a prim little stack of like 4 music CDs, 3 PlayStation CDs, and a couple of books. And as unimpressive as that looked, it probably cost more put together than some of the big piles of toys I'd taken home in prior years. But Aiden, at the same time, we're seeing these magazines and the writers who work for them pushing back against their traditional role of helping you decide what game is worth the money they're charging for it. We're seeing longer, more thoughtful critiques, complex scoring systems, explicit guidelines and rubrics printed right alongside the scores, and very rarely, no score at all. But as much as the thoughtful end of the audience appreciated magazines' editorial ambition here, we also still expected them to tell us what games were worth our or our parents' money, and the expectation of the game companies laying out advertising dollars was surely that they'd at least avoid popping the sales bubble of any major release. Do you remember the first time you realized every game wasn't really at least a 7? Or better yet, the first time you realized the reviewer who gave it a 7 didn't think it was a 7 either?
I don't have any like specific memories of like a light bulb, glass shattering moment where I realized that. A lot of, you know what? Actually, fast forward, and it didn't have anything to do with reading magazines in the 90s. It had to do with being a book critic and blogger in like 2008. When I picked up the paperback copy of a book, Winterbirth by Brian Ruckley, that I had reviewed on my blog, and I was pleased and tickled to find that there was a blurb from my review, quite a glowing blurb from my review on the back cover. First time that had ever happened to me.
Nice.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The problem was I didn't really like the book very much.
Oh.
I found some things to like about it, but I also had a lot of issues about it. And I was like, oh, whoa, like, that's weird. And so that like really crystallized for me, like the divide between sort of criticism and marketing for products like books and video games. Because I could, and then throughout my career as a book critic, that kept happening. Sometimes I would write glowing reviews that would get tons of traffic, and I'd be like, oh, this is for sure a back cover quote. I would write back cover quotes into my reviews. Like specifically, I'd be like, this is a sentence that I'm writing to appear on the back cover of this book.
Gotcha.
and then it wouldn't show up. And I'd be like, but I love that book. And then I would read a book that I like, was lukewarm on, but I could recognize some of its qualities. And I'd write something in the middle of the review without thinking about it, and then that's what would be blurbed. And so that really kind of like showed me that like, oh, okay, there's an audience for criticism, there's audience for marketing, and those are going to get blurred depending on like the needs or the wants of the person sort of like utilizing that quote as well. So that for me is probably where I really saw and started to understand this dichotomy that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's got to be weird to be the critic who like looks at the back of the book or the movie poster and sees like quote A ellipsis fun ellipsis brackets movie close quote Aiden Moher. Like what? Okay. I mean, I guess I did say those words in that order with some other words in there.
And like I never had a quote that was like misused or used outside of context in the way that you're describing.
Right.
They were all things that like I did like about whatever book, because I often, like as a critic, especially as I got better at it, did try to understand what the creator was trying to do, even if it didn't work for me. So like I never felt manipulated, but I definitely felt like, oh, okay, like they are cherry picking here. So I can't really trust any like review blurb, really. I have reviews on Brandon Sanderson books, and like I like Brandon Sanderson, but like if you read my blurb on the back of, it was like, which one was it, Oathbringer or something?
Sure.
You'd think, I was a huge fanboy, whereas in reality, I like Sanderson's book, but I find them very problematic. And so the same thing kept happening over time. And, it was like, yeah, okay, I did write that, and I can see how that's going to, like, appeal to people. So, I was never upset by it, but it definitely made me think about the other review blurbs I was reading.
Yeah, well, I have a memory tied directly to this, and it's the very review we're going to review today. In this very issue, we're going to look at the Christmas 1996 issue of Ultra Game Players. We're about to get a great look at how magazines were maturing and how their critique was evolving, but the North American games market still revolved almost entirely around kids getting these pricey games and consoles for Christmas. Huge chunks of industry revenues have traditionally come in Q4, with holiday sales alone making or breaking games, consoles, and companies. And I think this issue might be the starkest contrast we've seen yet between editorial ambitions and like flat commercial endorsement. So just look at the cover. It's all silver and white with just a few stark hits of like high contrast red and black. Game Players had traditionally been as like neon happy and color clashy as any other magazine, but these like sleek graphics and light metallics I think really make space for the big text and the key figure, Lara Croft. This might be the best looking Lara Croft cover from this era, and I don't mean that in like a leery, gross way. In fact, part of what stands out for me is that she's not being posed or clothed extra sexually here, in contrast to like every other one. She's
her boobs are half covered up, which like honestly is sort of like notable for this period of games media.
Yes. And she's rendered in 3D with like a way higher poly count and texture quality, certainly than in the gameplay of Tomb Raider 1, which, by the way, is reviewed in this issue. And honestly, I think even better than that game's cutscenes. Like I went back and looked at them, like, so I don't even know where this model came from. Even if you go look at the Tomb Raider 2 model, which presumably would have been at least in concept at the time, it's like way more sexualized than this, even just like the baseline model used on the cover and in the cutscenes and stuff. So I'm like super curious where this, like how they did this. And she's got a Santa hat on, but other than that, she's just wearing her regular outfit and in like badass mode, blowing smoke off her just fired gun next to the splash text, "Smokin' Holiday Issue." The proximity of this to Jim Carrey and The Mask aside, I think this is a really well conceived and well executed cover. And then just by her arm, we have in all caps, "Which system is best? PlayStation, N64, PC, or Saturn?" And like, it's just kind of like, okay, here's, this is about as cool as I think a magazine could make video games look in 1996, and yet it still promises to tell us which one company we should tell our moms and dads to give all their money to.
Yeah, I really liked this era of Ultra Game Players. Like it visually, as I was flipping through this issue, it really like stoked a lot of memories.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be that sort of like the console wars were so important. You were always going to have that on here, right? They have like previews for 1997 with Resident Evil and Final Fantasy 7 and more. It says, they're really hitting you over the head with like, hey, these are all the games you want. And like, I'll be honest, I would bring issues of magazines to show my dad when I'd be trying to convince him to like pony up for a new game. And like you say, games are so expensive at that time. Like I get with my kids, like they're constantly asking me and expecting me to download new games off the eShop for them because they're like, I got Lego Jurassic World for my daughter for $5, so like that's their expectation. Whereas back then it was like, we kind of needed to be able to take a magazine to our parents and say, hey, look remember how I said I wanted a Nintendo 64? Like Ultra Game Players said it was the best console out there. Like, this is worth the money. I'm going to love this. It's an investment.
Yes.
And that was what games culture was like a bunch of kids trying to like sell their parents on stuff. And so I think that was probably part of what was going on here too. I also just like that Christmas Nights gets a on the Saturn, which is like a Christmas themed version of Nights, which the Saturn's big like Super Mario 64 competitor, gets a big splashy thing along the bottom. Like you'd never see something like that nowadays,
Yeah, and not
you'd never see a Christmas version of a game.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's on the demo disc too. There's a disc accompanying it, and you get to demo Christmas Nights. So we'll talk about that in a second
sweet,
also.
so,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good look, and I like the white and black, like like white and red with a little bit of black, like simple text matching up with Laura. Like I wouldn't call it like reserved or classy, but it does feel like it's trying to be a little more maybe grown up, like maybe not 12-year-olds, but like 17-year-olds sort of,
100%. Okay, so Aiden, in the Nintendo Power a few episodes ago, you asked me if I trusted their editorial. I guess I'll ask you, does this conflict between creativity and consumerism impact your trust of the review we're about to read?
It's a good question, and I think that's sort of like the core question of this podcast, really.
True.
Like, True. So I don't have like a clear answer on that. I trusted them implicitly back in the day, and now I've worked in games media with a lot of great like critics and feature writers and news writers and editors, and I trust all of them. And so, I think the people creating the magazine were always making the best choice they could within the environment they were working in. I think that we've gotten a lot better about talking about video games because they're not always viewed as a consumer product anymore. Whereas in these, they were often viewed as consumer products or like written about as consumer products. But I think ultimately the answer is yes. I think the people making the magazines were doing the best that they could within the, scriptures that they were handed by their parent company, who was trying to get advertising dollars, right? There's always that dichotomy. I think that's why worker-owned websites right now, like Aftermath or But Why Though, are so important because there is no conflict between how they make their money and how they cover video games. That was impossible back then in the mid-90s unless you were reading zines. But yeah, I think they're mostly trustworthy. And I think as we're about to see that you're starting to see that represented in the text a little bit more.
Yes, and I cannot say any more until we get to Ultra Game Player's review of NBA Live 97. So, when we get back from break, we're going to open up the smokin' cover and flip through this issue. If you're not already a member of FunFactor Ultra and getting ad-free episodes, hang tight. When we come back, we'll flip through Ultra Game Player's number 92 and their review of NBA Live 97. Welcome back to Fun Factor, where two old gamers review old video game magazine reviews. Of course, we want you to review us. Do we get a full 5.0 in Fun Factor? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or a comment on YouTube, and we will read the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining ones on the air. Ultra Game Players. Aiden, this is the first time we're coming back to a magazine we already covered. Of course, we did Game Players number 75 in our second ever episode on Chrono Trigger. But a little over a year after that issue came out, they got this sleek redesign for issue 89, added the Ultra prefix to the name. And, you know, you kind of look at this mix of like all caps and no caps fonts, this kind of sleek, rounded graphics elements, cleaner overall pages with a much more futuristic feel. Especially flip open the cover, get to the table of contents here. You can really see what I'm talking about. We've got these futuristic fonts that are mixed lower and uppercase in weird ways, all kind of rounded and sleek, and it really looks like Wipeout to me.
Yeah, it looks sort of like a sci-fi computer interface.
Yes,
to me, you know, like you'd see this on a Star Trek like panel on the
yes. It looks to me like the entire industry played that game and meant, oh god, we've all got to look a lot cooler.
yeah. Wipeout was very cool. Like the vibes were off the chart. So I can see why they were like, okay, we got to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is long, but Aiden, and it's actually from issue 89, the redesign a few issues earlier. We're looking at 92, but this was from 89, the new redesign. So can you read this long excerpt? I'm sorry, I think it's all worth it, from editor-in-chief Chris Slate.
Why? Why completely change a magazine when it already has scores of loyal readers? Why change when you're racing by the competition in terms of both commercial and critical success? Why change when the editorial is already well respected for its quality and integrity? Why? Because even though we had plenty to be happy about, we just weren't satisfied. We felt that we could still improve in almost every area, and we've never been ones to shy away from a challenge. The world of video games has changed remarkably over the years. Each new generation has taken us places we never imagined possible, and this generation, with its 32 and 64-bit consoles, is the most exciting ever. We're playing new types of games, so it only makes sense that we offer a new type of video game magazine. Simply stuffing 32 and 64-bit coverage in the old 16-bit format just doesn't cut it. Also, you won't find biased opinions, scandals, or bot editorial in Ultra Game Players. Our philosophy has, and always will be, reader first. Let's face it, without you guys, we're nothing. We'll never do anything to compromise our relationship. Drop me a line with your thoughts on the new Game Players. I can't respond to everyone, but I promise that I will read every message. Now, let's get this thing going.
Now, I'm not sure if scores of loyal readers was like a self-deprecating joke or the still very young Chris Slate did not know that score means 20. But other than that, damn, what a statement of intent. Does this all ring true to you?
I was going to joke about that as well because I've
there are dozens
we've seen numbers for like EGM around this time, and their like circulation of EGM I think was like 800,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So Scores is definitely selling it a little soft. The thing that stands out to me is that they called it Ultra Game Players, which was like the working title for the Nintendo 64. It was the Ultra 64 for so long, and it seems weird to take something that was like so tightly tied to one of the consoles.
Yeah.
But it sounds sweet. Is the magazine actually that much different in structure and style? Not really than it was, back when we reviewed 12 issues earlier in episode 2. Is the writing a little more cutting? Probably. And so I think there's maybe more like kind of editorializing towards a new vision. And obviously it looks very different.
Yes.
And it absolutely has that 32-bit, 64-bit like style to it. Like we said, it looks like Wipeout, or it looks like a computer panel from a science fiction TV show or movie. So I think it rings true, and I think he, fires some shots too about like, what I think about biased opinions. I think that every piece of media and criticism is a biased opinion, and pushing against that idea is wrong, as we're going to see as we read through this review. Like,
yes,
these are not subjective or objective reviews; they're subjective reviews. But I get what he's saying, that nobody's putting their finger on the scale to like impact or shape what we're writing about. And scandals and bot editorial, like, it feels like he's taking a shot at other contemporaries, which is interesting. Does this kind of presage some of the stuff that we would start seeing as the internet took off, and they were like, the console wars turned into like, which games media site you liked or which message board you spent time on, and
yes,
which ones you made fun of and stuff like that. But yeah, like, you know, what he's saying here reminds me of what happened with GameSpot way back when. You know, when Gerstmann left after there was the whole like Kane and Lynch fiasco, which was like, you know, bought editorial, and Gerstmann like pushed back against that, and they went on to create Giant Bomb, right? Which is still one of the biggest sites out there. So, you know, I do think those issues existed within games media in some capacity, and for Slate to outright address them in the magazine is kind of remarkable, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And the one format change that actually did happen, it comes through in the numbers. And I don't remember feeling this at the time. The numbers, it's the holiday 1996 issue. I'm pretty sure there was a November issue and a December issue. I think this was a separate, like, 13th issue,
nice.
Which I think they did for a few years. 151 pages of editorial, plus several pages of ads at the back and at the front, actually. 16 games reviewed for 4 systems, N64, PlayStation, PC, and Saturn. And so I went back and looked. The year before, again, this is holiday 96. The last issue we looked at was September 95. So just over a year ago. That issue had 21 full reviews, 73 capsule reviews, plus 3 reader reviews for 10 systems. So part of what makes Ultra Game Players Ultra is that we are no longer messing around with handheld or 3DO or Jaguar, and of course part of it is also these systems are like rapidly dying out. You know, Virtual Boy I think had already come and gone basically at this point. Like, it was still on the shelves and games are still on the shelves, but I think the last one had already been released by the end of 96.
Sure.
So they're just down to the AAA consoles plus PC, and not that much PC. So then I think
handhelds like Game Boy?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's none of that.
Yeah,
in this.
Wild.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't know that no Game Boy games were reviewed in the run of Ultra Game Players, right? Or other, you know, I'm trying to think of what the next major portable would have been kind of, you know, in this. Because I think...
I mean, it was Game Boy until 2001, right?
Yes.
When the Advance came out.
Yeah.
So, like, this would have been, like... Yeah. Right in the Game Boy's run.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, you know, they weren't given Pinocchio Editor's Choice badges, but they would probably end up covering, like, you know, whatever, Link's Awakening.
Something like that.
Mario games, stuff like those big heavy hitters. Yeah.
For sure. Then if we look, go ahead a little bit to the masthead. The names on the masthead haven't changed a ton, but the masthead itself has. Besides looking a lot cooler, we get bigger, better headshots of the lead editors and writers, and longer, jokier bios of each.
Yes, definitely. And, like, you know, they're having a bit of fun. These are like professional headshots. They were obviously in a studio all together, like getting their headshots. There's 2 different ones of Chris Slate. One for his like editor, like, you know, like his whatever, what is that called? Letter from the editor?
Yes.
And then one for his little bio where he's being a little cheekier. But then I even head over to like the full masthead, and we've talked about this on earlier episodes. One thing that stands out to me is in the full masthead you have editor Chris Slate, the second person on here, which has probably had the biggest impact on this new version of Game Players, art director Debbie Wells. And so Debbie obviously oversaw this dramatic re-envisioning of what Game Players looks like, ranking ahead of managing editor Bill Donahue on the main masthead, but because she's not writing things in the magazine, she's not getting that same level of like, you know, prominence as some of just the staff writers even. And I think it's just really important to, you know, acknowledge those people who are putting in these massive amounts of work and aren't necessarily recognized for that.
Yeah, with a hope and a prayer, I actually cold messaged her on LinkedIn to ask, hey, how'd you come up with this Lara Croft asset? Like, who's, you know,
get out.
Maybe see if we could get an interview for bonus episode. But she's had the same job in the kind of the public sector for like 12 years and probably doesn't check her LinkedIn, which is fine.
No, my day job is in the public sector and I do not go on LinkedIn ever.
Yeah.
One other thing from the masthead before we move on is, as I go down, I see a little familiar name as a web slinger. So I assume that means like a web presence, because just below that's web editor. But the web slinger is Stephen Frost, who we talked about earlier, and he went on to run PSM, I believe.
The PSM reviews editor. Right. Or at least at that
reviews
time.
editor.
Right. Yeah. So and I think you moved on to bigger roles after that too, but
yes. And it's always fun to see like familiar names sort of pop up in these tertial roles. And then eventually you see how they sort of make their way into becoming kind of influential editors and writers as well.
last time, Jeff Lundgren's personal @netcom.com email was the only
Yes.
published contact email address
right.
for the whole magazine. This time, the whole staff has their own company email printed underneath their names, plus there's an inbox. We will overlook the @qm.imagine-inc.com domain. It's still very early days, but it's just in a year, the internet has gone from this is starting to creep in at the edges to this is central to everything that's going on. My favorite bit, there is a little pull-out box for contributors, and it not only names the contributors, but what roles they have across the rest of Imagine Media. So you have Christian Svensson, who's the assistant editor of Next Gen Online, credited here as a contributor to Ultra Game Players. Jason Bates, assistant editor, PC Gamer. And unfortunately, there was one that I thought was really interesting, but turned out to be really upsetting. Jason Montez, web editor for Game Players Online. And again, in the fall of 95, many of these magazines had no web presence at all. And by the end of 96, they pretty much all have staff dedicated to running their own website. And so when a name or role jumps off the page, I look them up to see how the rest of their career went. And this time I wish I hadn't. Montez's life came to a violent and tragic end in 2009 at the age of 33, and so did that of his 25-year-old wife. I am not going to dwell on the details here, but it's another reminder that the people who created these magazines were all human beings who came from and went to all kinds of different places in life, and they carried their talents and troubles and virtues and vices with them at all times and contributed to these creative works that we loved as kids. And, now we have to deal with that's still how this goes. But just a few months earlier, Game Players Online had been gathered into a collective with 4 other websites run by publisher Imagine Media, together with Next Generation Online, PSX Power, N64.com, and Saturn World. Game Players Online was the foundation for the Imagine Games Network, or IGN. And if you don't know, now you know. All my favorite game magazines' websites eventually became what was not then and is not now my favorite games website.
Hey, I've written for IGN, and they're lovely.
Many eras of IGN. I'll say that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And like, when I think of the web wars and stuff, like I was a big 1UP guy. And like, IGN was the enemy for a long time. And now I look back on that and I'm like, oh, that's because I was totally like, manipulated by this culture war between sites when we should have all just kind of loved each other and stuff. But it's wild to see the winding history of how all of these games media pieces link together and still exist in so many different forms, right?
Oh, yeah. But hey, we are like a half hour plus in, and we're still on page 2. It's time for the flip through. And we only go one page forward, actually, because I want to stay right here opposite the masthead for just a second. We have copy promoting the disc. Don't dare miss out. It's the magazine's new companion demo disc. And if you'd like to know more about magazines and demo discs, join the FunFactor Ultra review crew. Check out our premium bonus episode on magazine demo discs with Epis Vox and Sean Shanson. Note that red raised fist logo emblazoned Ultra Game Players Holiday Special 96. Again, extremely Wipeout to me. Like, that looks like the Phasar logo or whatever, like on the side of one of those shirts.
100%.
I'm just saying. Aiden, can you read some of this promo text?
Yeah, so we have, it's a fairly sparse page with just a few big, like, pieces of call out text, a little image of the disc sleeve. But then in a sidebar, we have a few bullet points. And the first one here is, what would you pay for a single CD-ROM containing dozens of playable demos of the very latest, hottest PC and Mac games and high-quality movies of new and still in development 32 and 64-bit games? Zero, because I was used to paying $0 for a demo disc.
Yes.
You were not getting 64-bit games on a CD demo disc also. But I
Right,
guess unless you were
yeah.
getting Jaguar CD games, but I have a feeling Ultra Game Players was not putting those on there. The next bullet point: wouldn't it be cool if you could see and hear world exclusive footage of the hottest
Yes.
from the hottest Saturn and PlayStation games from around the world before most magazines have even published a screenshot? Guarantee that never happened in the existence of these demo discs. There's no way they were getting
No.
builds before screenshots were out there, but it felt that way sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if that disc also contained a ton of free internet software. Free internet software has never got anyone in trouble and was stuck to the front of the world's #1 video game and computer magazine. And then it goes on like that. It's just like bullet points, kind of like ramping up the idea of a demo disc.
Yeah.
None of this is new.
I want to emphasize all the all caps, spread throughout. But to me, this is such a great example of the sort of breathless self-hype language these magazines deployed well, often. And it just, doesn't it feel like this whole style is just so like indelibly game mag? Like it's like this very specific, exhortative sort of voice. Like maybe Stan Lee writing in Marvel,
maybe
hyping up Make Mine Marvel, maybe, but like for most part, this feels like almost
all
unique
of these
to game magazines.
in like the announcer voice from F-Zero 64 or whatever, all of them are written in the voice of video games for sure. My favorite part of this sidebar though is right at the very end. They say, we call it the Ultra Game Players Disc Edition, but Ultra Game Players is stylized in a completely different font. With ultra capitalized, Game Players not capitalized, with the whole thing bolded. And it's funny how like corporate brand guidelines are sort of intruding on the new visual language that they've come up with for the magazine.
I miss that, but you're absolutely right. They're using the regular body font that's used throughout the rest of the magazine for that Ultra Game Players. It can't appear in this sort of
Courier. It kind of looks like Courier, the font that they use for all this funky stuff.
Yeah, it's like console. It's like the like aping a like Unix readout type display. Like a terminal type thing. And then this is like, nope, this is the same sans serif we use for the rest of the magazine for Ultra Game Players. Amazing. I'm not sure if I ever told you this, Aiden, but I strongly considered running the FunFactor Blue Sky account entirely in this voice, as best I could. And like almost immediately, I was like, "This is not
sustainable, but it would be pretty funny."
No. All right, let's finally move on into actual content. Page 14, the big feature, the 1996 annual awards. Now, I think these were because they have their ultimate award, which goes to any score 90 or higher for any game. And then this Ultra Award logo, it says Ultra Award, but it doesn't say, it says the 1996 Ultra Game Players Annual Awards. So this feels a little all over the place in terms of what these awards actually are called. I think they realize they've been doing these awards annually, and now they've changed the name of the magazine, and so now they don't know whether to change the name of the award. It feels like it got kind of caught between two stools, as they say in England. The ultimate chronicle of the year's best games. Okay, so what they're going to do is they are going to give out an overall, basically, game of the year. It says game of the year. An overall game of the year, 4 contenders listed, basically capsule reviews for all of them. And then they're going to move on and do best for each mainline console, plus arcade, each with a couple 3, honorable mentions. The best in each of 11 genres, and contenders for those. 7 PC-only awards, which are like a mix of genre and technical. And then 3, I guess we'll call them the technical awards. But we will see they are not all technical awards. And I love that they front load this instead of awards traditionally backload. No, first page, best overall game of the year, Super Mario 64.
Correct.
This, we talked about this. Yes, absolutely correct. And again, they basically review the game all over again. It gets almost a full half page. There's some big graphics and a big render of Mario. Despite its childlike appearance, Super Mario 64 is a game that transcends expectations. It possesses that particular magic and whimsy that allows it to touch the child in all of us. The most immediate sense that communicates to the player when he picks up a Nintendo 64 controller can best be described as Wii. The sensation is so it's like this is the superlatives absolutely deserved, and it's something that I think is important to go back and look at the time, like what critics were saying about these games at the time. Very interesting though. Let's look at the contenders. Wave Race 64.
Banger.
Fighting, yeah, banger, absolutely. Love to see it here. Fighting Vipers for Saturn. Resident Evil for Saturn, it's listed here, which is interesting. And then best overall, another contender is Tomb Raider, which, again, they reviewed in this issue, so snuck it in classic Oscars fashion.
Oh, yes.
Get your Game of the Year contender in December, just so you can get it in there. So this is just really interesting that they would give this. Actually, this is just a typo. This is just wrong. Because it says, I'm like, I don't think Saturn got a port of this for a while yet. Resident Evil has the distinction of being the PlayStation's first killer app. So yeah, no, they're just completely wrong.
You know what,
so,
man? In my book, Fight Magic Items, I have a typo like this that kills me. And when I was doing the draft, I just copy pasted a box for a game and forgot to change the console. And it was as simple as that, right?
No.
Like I just copy pasted and forgot to change the console. So it says, I can't even remember what game it was, but it's like Eternal Sonata. It says it's on the Saturn, and it kills me every time I see it. So
I'd be curious to know if Fighting Vipers got on here because they're like, we need a Saturn game in the contenders.
But sure, Fighting Vipers is fine. It's the odd one out here, right? Like this list is good. Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, like foundational games, right? And still nothing like Wave Race 64. Fighting Vipers, there was like, if you wanted a fighting game because they were popular back then, like, was it better than Street Fighter Alpha 2? Was it better than Virtua Fighter 3? If you needed a Saturn game, was it better than Panzer Dragoons Y? I don't think so. There's so many games here. And if you wanted broader representation, Fighting Vipers definitely was not better than Quake or Duke Nukem 3D or Command & Conquer Red Alert. Elder Scrolls Daggerfall. Like, this year was crazy. Knights is in here. Wipeout XL. Like, so there's some big games this year. So I just can't see that by any metric that Fighting Vipers, despite being fine, really was one of the top 5 games of the year over basically any of those.
Yeah, the only argument I can make is it's probably the best 3D fighter available for home consoles if you're a Virtua Fighter type of person, because it's a noted improvement graphics and mechanically, plus it's got some fun, character designs and whatnot, and some riffs on the caged combat, right? So like I think, and they also gave it the best Saturn game, right? So I feel like that's what's ultimately happening here is they're like, we can't list 4 also, honorable mentions and not sneak a Saturn game in there. So I guess the best Saturn game.
But when they call it the best Saturn game, so they did give it best Saturn game, but in their little review, they say Fighting Vipers is even superior to the mighty Virtua Fighter 2. So like, you can't, I'm sorry, but like, you can't have an editorial saying there's no bias in our magazine and then tell me that Fighting Vipers is better than Virtua Fighter 2. Like, come on.
Right.
Maybe you like it more, but yeah, I don't know. And which is fine. Like, ultimately, I think it's fine to go like off the board and have stuff that like hit your particular group harder than other stuff that might have been more obvious. In hindsight, it doesn't hold up, but don't pretend that you're being objective or unbiased when you're making your magazine and then pick Fighting Vipers as like top 5 game of the year in one of the like craziest years for gaming ever.
Oh yeah. So
like 96 was wild for game releases.
Yeah, we get that matured 32-bit stuff. So again, best PlayStation game does go to Tomb Raider. I have a whole Tomb Raider spiel we can do some other time. There's little this game doesn't do, right? It's, this is definitely foundational in a lot of ways. Resident Evil is a contender. Wipeout XL is a contender. Tobal #1 sneaks in on this list. And again, Tobal #1, I think, was mostly famous for its Final Fantasy VII demo.
The Final Fantasy VII demo was the 4th best PlayStation game of the year.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Nintendo 64, and notably, every Nintendo 64 game released to that point made the list. You've got Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64, and Pilot Wing 64.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. And then for alternates for Saturn, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Tomb Raider, and Knights. Genre awards: best role-playing game, Suikoden. And it's reviewed in this issue also, which if we have time, we can take a look at it. Lufia 2 gets in there. 2. Super NES. Yep. Mario RPG gets
Legend
in there.
Oasis.
Legend of Oasis.
Yeah. I mean, I could take Lufia 2, Mario RPG, or Suikoden from that year. Any one of those would be pretty good winners for me. So I'm not going to argue as the RPG guy.
Yeah, best action platform game, Mario 64. Again, I like that they're being consistent without going full GoldenEye and Nintendo Power.
Yes. We recorded an episode with Flashback 64 where we went over the Nintendo Power Awards for which year was it, 97. And GoldenEye just got like every award and it was ridiculous.
I think literally like 12 of 15 or 12 of 14 categories went to GoldenEye.
What's wild.
Coming up, Knights, Crash Bandicoot, and Jumping Flash 2 gets in there as best action platform game. Another game that a lot of games that we've ended up covering their reviews of in this best, even though they may not have been the biggest releases at the time. Best adventure game goes to Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, and Guardian Heroes from the Saturn sneaks in.
Man, what a year.
Right?
What a year 1996 was. Holy smokes.
Fighting game, Fighting Vipers, they give it over Tobal number 1, Street Fighter Alpha 2, and Tekken 2. Wave Race 64 gets best racing game over Wipeout XL. I loved so much about Wipeout XL, and I also felt like there was something just a little off with it, like from the spirit of the original. But overall, I think it's a big deal that they made this call for Wave Race 64, which was a fantastic game.
One of the best racing games of all time. So I think you're right that, like, I mean, this is a magazine that, like, if you go back a page, there is a screenshot from Wipeout XL, and you are spot on that the visual, like, language of this magazine comes from, like, a game like that. Like, it uses that same high-techy, like, rounded font that you've been talking about. So the fact that they still gave best racing game to Wave Race 64 is, worth pointing out. Wave Race 64 holds up. Like I said, nothing like it. So they made the right call there instead of the easy call, which would have probably been Wipeout XL.
Yeah. Quickly, sports game goes to Worldwide Soccer 97, which actually it was funny. I remember kind of poo-pooing that in Intelligent Gamer. I think that was the one that
you were kind of dogging on that a little.
But I remember being like, I don't think this one left that much of a mark, but it was the best sports game of the year over Game Day 97, World Series Baseball 2, and NHL Power Play. We'll get to the state of sports games.
Yes, I was going to say, I think we'll get into like the quality of sports games in this part of the generation.
Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei takes best shooter. First person shooter goes to Disruptor, which is interesting.
So this is all, like, they were limited to console games, hey? Because, like, Quake and Duke Nukem 3D came out, so they were not crossing over even into the genres then, hey?
Flip a page, PC Awards. They went PC only, so this is really weird because they did PC and then they did mostly genre. So Game of the Year is Quake. Action Game is Duke Nukem 3D, which to NFL fans will know this is the MVP goes to the quarterback, offensive player of the year goes to the running back situation. PC War Game, Close Combat. I don't even remember that one.
PC War Game. Is that a genre?
Yeah, well, because then Strategy Game is a different one, and it goes to Command and Conquer Red Alert. So, okay. And then Flight Sim is AH-64D Longbow, which that's a helicopter war game.
Snooze.
Elder Scrolls Daggerfall takes role-playing game. And again, this is the thing I point at when people are like, why did we ever separate them into JRPGs and RPGs? It's like, okay, go look at Lufia 2 and then go look at Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, and you tell me those are the two same genre of game. They are not. We can quibble about how and why the names came to be, but they're describing what was in the 90s an incredibly real phenomenon. Nobody is saying, oh, if you like Lufia 2, you're going to love Daggerfall, or the other way around. So into their technical awards,
Can I just to interject?
Yeah.
Like, I totally played Lufia 2 and Daggerfall that year.
Well, but
not exclusively, like, and didn't beat Daggerfall, but
yeah, and I also played Wipeout XL and Mario 64. They're not the same game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Very different experiences.
Best soundtrack and best intro sequence, Wipeout XL. Best use of sound, Resident Evil. I like splitting that out, but I want to get to okay. So this is great because we get all the sexism and the proto-woke in the same shot. So we get best video game ad we'll never see in the US, Destruction Derby 2. And it's like two dominatrices in like vinyl with whips and a guy and just driving a Destruction Derby car. They don't make ads like they used to, at least not in this country. Take a look at the likes of what those cheeky English consider an ad for Destruction Derby 2. What do scantily clad women with whips have to do with video games? Who cares? Then opposite page, best video game babe goes to Lara Croft. And again, if you compare this to the cover shot, you will see what we're talking about when we say this. The cover shot was a much more modest and badassery focused rendition of Lara. But also, fair's fair, we get best video game hunk. Chuji Woo from Tobal number 1.
Look at that 8-pack.
Yeah. The unanimous decision of our judges was bestowed upon Chuji Woo of Tobal number 1 fame. Chuji looks a little young, but his understated build and bold hairstyle carried the day with our judges. Yes, and then we get best Ultra GP game idea bear. If you were reading along at the time, having reviews be by a bear or a bear answering the letters section was a great running gag. And then they like shark, like, what if bear, but it was a shark. Rogue cop, sort of Virtua Cop game without any scruples. Not outright evil, rogue cop merely acts in his own self-interest. Feared by criminals for his unceremonious collection of their profits, law-abiding citizens should be aware that the game grants bonus points for killing innocents in hostage situations. Definitely a Bill kind of game. Yeah, lots here to unpack.
Best use of blood, Die Hard trilogy.
Yeah. Man.
It was a time. It was a vibe.
Blood just doesn't flow in this game, it explodes. Using your windshield to wipe away the innards of innocent pedestrians from your windshield and Die Harder is one of the great video game moments of all time. Woo-hoo-hoo. Okay. Unbelievable. Okay.
Chill out, guys.
Given that crackling little bit of writing, we're going to take a break from that and read some of yours. When we come back from this break, we will read your reviews of our reviews of classic video game magazine reviews right here on FunFactor. Hey, we've got mail! As promised, we always review the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining 5-star Apple Podcast reviews on the air, as well as choice YouTube comments and or kind messages on the Discord. Bonus points if you say who your favorite host is and why. Double bonus points if it's Aiden.
So today's first comment from our YouTube channel, which has been kind of popping off. We love it. Thank you everybody who's watching there, where we have slides from the episode so you can see on your screen what we're talking about. Jason WFD says, "Hey FunFactor, I've been loving your podcast since the first episode, but I gotta say that this episode had a unique element to it that was super interesting to me. I thought it was great how you examined the different goals of the writers and the relationship between the writers and the readers when it comes to first-party game review magazines as opposed to third-party publications. When I was a kid, I don't think this ever would have occurred to me. Nowadays, as a middle-aged man, I had a sort of subconscious understanding of the difference between actual critique and glorified advertising. To have that difference broken down and examined the way you did for this issue of Nintendo Power really opened my eyes to thinking about critique itself in a more critical sense. And who knows, maybe this newly awakened awareness of the interplay between various forms of games media and its intended audience will give me insight into other related things in life. TLDR, I learned something new today and I had fun doing so. Thank you both for your excellent work with FunFactor. I appreciate what you do and I look forward to each episode. Sincerely, Jason WFD. P.S. Absolutely love the outtakes and bloopers at the end of the episodes. Also, great use of Chrono Trigger sound effects to break up audio clips.
What bloopers and outtakes at the end of episodes? There's no bloopers or outtakes at the end of episodes.
First take every time, right?
Every time.
Flawless. This was a great comment, and I think it fits so perfectly on this episode.
100%.
Because it touches on a lot of what we're going to look at in the review later in this episode.
Yes, it does. Also, we had not gotten a single note about this up until this point. 3 different people said they do not like the caption style we've been using, with the kind of comic book font appearing as the words say. They call it bouncing text. It's just appearing as the words say, but we will make that cleaner and easier to read for everyone, and might go to the auto captions. I like being able to edit the captions in the creation tool that we're using, versus just taking, like whatever YouTube puts up. But we will clean that up and make it just more functional for everyone, rather than go for like maximum style. But again, we really do appreciate feedback like that. Any feedback like that you've got, absolutely let us know. Again, join our Discord. The link is on our website, funfactorpod.com. Just let us know in the Discord. We will absolutely love to take the feedback, good and constructive criticism and whatever, because we do this for you guys, and hope to entertain and enlighten a little bit. And we have fun doing it too. Okay, Aiden, banger of an episode, I think, so far. Ready to get back to the rest of it?
Let's go.
We have been having 5 stars out of 5 stars worth of fun today. We hope you are too. Let's get into, maybe we should review ourselves on the incredibly ornate and intricate Game Player's review system. It's a little bit more ultra even than before. We have now, because just like it was before the Ultra Edition, we have a weighted average of a set of categories, each of which gets a 1 to 10 score, now with decimals also, but there are also more and better defined categories. So instead of gameplay weighted by 6, we have interaction, balance, and depth, each weighted by 4. Extras and presentation are new, joining innovation. Each of these are weighted by 1. Music and sound effects have been split into 2 categories. And then instead of plus minus bullet points for these categories, we have a list of alternatives. So similar and or similarly rated games along with their overall rating from this magazine to give you a better idea of taste. We'll get to taste in a second. Just me now reading this, I'm like, interaction, balance, and depth. So it says interaction. How well does the game respond to your commands? How much influence do you have over what's going on? Weighted by 4. Balance. Is the game childishly easy one level, then frustratingly hard the next? Does your opponent have an unfair advantage? When you want to save, do you have to walk an hour back to the village? Weighted by 4. Ever bought a game, fallen in love with it the first hour, only to beat it in 2 hours? Great game will take a long time to finish and offer plenty of... So it's like, these all mean something. They are defining this
for sure, yeah. Depth is just like replay value.
Effectively, yes. Right?
And yeah, exactly. And I get what they all mean. I think the more granular you get, the more trouble you get into with anything like this. But this is the part of the podcast where I admit to not understanding how weighting things works. When this is weighted by 4, I don't know how that works. Well, look, do they multiply it by 4?
Yeah. And then it says rating, the total sum of all the categories divided by 23.
By 23.
Because that's all the categories by their weights.
Oh.
So if you take graphics weighted by 4, music weighted by 2, sound effects weighted by 2. So it's like you go, okay, if you give it an 8 for graphics, it gets 8, 8, 8, 8. And if you give music a 7, you get 7, 7 because it's weighted by 2. So it's effectively like, okay, and then you average that.
Gosh, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've got this magazine tucked in my math textbook so the teacher doesn't read it. This is too much, man. Just tell me if the game's good. I do really like the alternatives idea though, that it shows similar-ish games, not just as recommendations, but saying, hey, this game is like this, and here's how those other games scored. Red Alert gets a review. And it's here are the alternatives: Warcraft 2, Command and Conquer, Warcraft, and here are the scores that those games got. Kind of a neat way to kind of contextualize what we're looking at.
So I mentioned taste. Got to talk about taste. Sportsline, the best sports video game coverage anywhere from gamers who actually play real sports. And Mike Salmon, who is, I forget his actual title because I think he got promoted a couple of times in his like 3-ish year run at Game Players, and then I'll get to it in a second. His own little from the editor thing, because they have a sports section now that's separated out, and we've talked about other magazines did this or also did this with RPGs. And so he's reviewing NBA Live 97. It's a full page review. There's quite a bit of screenshots. Most of them are quite small. We have a very funny, if you look at the second screenshot along the bottom row, the create a player, we have him creating himself with a PlayStation 1 3D polygon model creator. It's incredibly funny. Go ahead.
It's got some Luka Doncic
yes
in that Lakers jersey.
Yes,
with a goatee. Luka with a goatee.
Very, very weird proportions. Salmon was a game player stalwart. He rose quickly to a senior editor role, often had handled sports game duties before they gave him like this sports section. He went on to take over Imagine's PC Accelerator magazine, which was eventually just called PC XL, and then became editor-in-chief of the official Xbox magazine. Mike Salmon then moved on to consulting from 2003 through 2011. He was president and co-founder of the Big Solutions Group, co-founded and ran highly respected global research and video game consulting firm, provided guidance and feedback on concept execution, positioning, PR tactics, marketing, and then he started talking the talk for real. Became the director of research and planning for 2K Sports. It just says 2K, right? 2K Publishing. But they were making all the 2K sports games. So this is very interesting to me as we get into the text of this review, that he basically went, all right, let me do it. let me
it was
me
like
help
the Luke
you.
Smith, like the Luke Smith thing where he like went from like ragging on games on the One Up show to or One Up Yours, and then started making like Warcraft and Destiny and all that kind of stuff. And
Yes.
like, and then was really good at it too. And it was like, oh wait, Luke was right about everything all along.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual text. Aiden, you want to review this first little segment here?
Yeah. So, well, if you're a longtime reader of Sportsline, you know that I chose NBA Live 96 as my basketball game of the year, despite its poor sprite-based graphics. This year, EA has added polygons in an effort to seal up the title again. Unfortunately, the gameplay has suffered quite a bit in the process, with some of the slowest gameplay in the series' history. Remember NBA Showdown? The polygonal players look incredible, and the graphics are a huge improvement over last year, but b-ball fans know that a nice package doesn't always mean a great game.
Yeah, the subhead here, NBA Live 97, is EA's jump to polygons actually a step back? Is interesting. And again, we've had this conversation over and over again, because this is this era as we're jumping from 16 to 32, as we're jumping from pixels to polygons, right? And something I've thought from the beginning, conceiving this show, I thought I'd want to do a special episode on Madden 96 not shipping. Right, it was supposed to be for PlayStation, and they ultimately canned it, which was a stunning upset. You know, Madden was a juggernaut at the time, even before getting the exclusivity deal. You know, and so for them to completely whiff on a console generation, well, okay, here's the jump from sprites to polygons for NBA, and apparently nailed the polygons, but not everything else.
I think, like, as you're saying, you know, we talk a lot about the shift to polygons and how they kind of chase new tech at the expense of gameplay in a lot of instances. Some games, like Mario 64, nailed that and used polygonal gameplay to create something new, something that worked and could never have worked with sprite-based graphics. But, you know, Salmon here, he talks a lot about how the polygons look amazing and the graphics are great. And, like, in hindsight, they have not aged well at all, right? So they were impressive, and it was impressive new tech. But here we have an example where making that transition before it was ready, before the genre was ready, compromised gameplay to a point where it's just not a good game to go back to at all. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look as good as, you know, the sprite-based games that came before it, and it plays a lot worse. And so, you know, like, at what point should developers have been looking at, you know, what's best for the gameplay instead of chasing, like, okay, here's what Sony wants us to do or Nintendo wants us to do with these new consoles. And that's why I also admire the Saturn, which like there's been like some apocryphal, stories about its handling of polygons, and it was a little better, I think, than it gets credit for. But at the same time, like it knew that technology was not necessarily ready for prime time, and it put a lot of effort into like fostering sprite-based games. And that's why you look at its Japanese library, and it's one of the best consoles of all time.
Yeah.
You look at its North American library, and it's just not. It doesn't hit, and it didn't hit. And I think you can see that kind of like in what Mike Salmon's writing about here.
All right, this is the meat of the review for me. This is the big thing. This is what made me sit up in my gamer chair at the time. Read the second segment for me.
If you can get past the poor control and slow play, NBA Live 97 is extremely deep and beautiful to watch. Unfortunately, it's just not fun like it used to be. I could easily give this game another 8.6, but I'm personally not satisfied with the state of basketball games on the market, and my scores are going to show it. So, if NBA Action 97 comes up short, it'll get the same tough treatment. I applaud EA's attempt to bring the polygons and its standard gameplay together, but I think it's high time that the standard of gameplay is improved upon, instead of just the game's graphics. The basic fact is that NBA Live has lost its playability. The two-player game can't even compare to In the Zone 2, and the one-player game, while deep, is just too slow. I've personally been a longtime fan of the NBA Live series because of their commitment to being a simulation, and this game needs to get back the fun it once had.
There are so many bangers in this section for me that stuck out, but number one, the one that really got it was, I could easily give this game another 8.6. And I remember reading this and immediately seeing in my mind this world where you go, okay, yep, here's NBA Live. It's the EA game. It is the best basketball game on the market. It is a big jump forward in several important areas. And I'm going to give it an 8.6. And those who know are going to be able to read into the review and go, if this game was actually great, it'd be a 9.4.
Yeah.
Like he's calling this phenomenon out that I had like perceived, but not even really put a name to yet, or even maybe not even consciously perceived, but gone, if this were awesome, it'd be a 9.8, but it's not awesome. It's an 8.6. Okay. No, he's like, I'm not going to throw EA that bone. This game is not fun to play. It's just not a good game. As much as the I am going to hit him with this 6.5 and they're going to feel it. And it's like he's writing directly to them in their PR department. Like, hey, and this is the next piece. I'm personally not satisfied with the state of basketball games on the market, and my scores are going to show it. I think that is such a great line.
Yeah, that's like a called shot for sure, especially when you take into context like his career after this.
Yes.
The thing that really stands out to me is I could easily give this game another 8.6.
Right.
But the Ultra Game Player's scoring system is based on weighted averages of all of these different categories.
We talked about this in Game Player 75 as well.
Are you working backwards, right?
Yeah.
From the score you want to give. And you look at the individual score. So graphics 8, music 8, sound effects 8, interaction 4, balance 5, depth 7, extras 7, presentation 10, innovation 5. Only one of those scored above an 8.5 or an 8.6, right?
Right.
Which was in presentation. So like he would have had to like fudge a ton of those to get the math to work, to get that up 2.1 points in the rating, which I think is interesting too. And so, what were those conversations like with an editor? How does that process look as they're scoring and stuff like that? But I hadn't actually read the review until I just read it live. And it's interesting to see that he touched on some of the things I did between the two review segments, which is if you make that switch to polygons, it has to make the gameplay better.
Yes.
It has to make the experience better. And at compromising the like simulation aspects, making a less realistic basketball game just to get polygonal stuff in there was not a good decision. And a lot of games made that bad decision.
Or alternatively, trying to preserve the simulation and going, well, it's going to look great and it's going to be accurate, but it just can't be fast or fun, right? That's another, that's another thing where you go, okay, well, like, it doesn't matter how good it looks or how much, NBA on TNT. if the game sucks to play, I don't care
Yes.
that the Cryon
Yeah.
is just the same as the NBA
Yeah.
on TNT, right?
That's why, like, as much as people make fun of FunFactor and like, you know, in
What?
you know, as a review metric in GamePro.
Oh.
You know,
I'm like, what?
not
Who's been being mean to us? They're making
genuinely,
fun of
like,
us.
you know, it's kind of a meme that it's just a funny, silly thing to rate, but like, ultimately, isn't that the point?
Yes.
Like having fun.
Yes.
That's, you know, our podcast is named after that concept, and I think that Mike touches on that. It's like, yeah, does this look cool? Like, was I impressed graphically? Yes, but it's just not fun. And when we're playing video games, so much of the time, it's like, is the time we're putting into this valuable? That, you know, for me as an adult, at least, it's all about time. As a kid, it was like, is my hard-earned money? If I spend, you know, this was a PlayStation game, so it was probably, well, it was $55.99, but that would be $80 now, something like that.
Way more.
$90,
closer to
right?
100. Yeah.
So like, if I was spending that and that was the game I was getting for that half of the year or that quarter, like, and it's not fun, and then I'm just back to playing my old games again, like, that's a big deal. And so like, FunFactor is it for me at the end of the day. The ones that feel the most, it's like, defines what feels the most worthwhile for my time, my attention, my money. And I think Salmon really touches on that and connects those dots in this review. I'd say this is one of the best reviews we've looked at.
Oh, yeah.
Period. Because it's
Yeah.
a piece of criticism. It's not just like a consumer guide style review. It's a piece of criticism about the state of the industry, you know, the state of basketball games, the choices made by developers to chase trends and technologies over like good gameplay experiences.
Yeah. And it's worth saying before we get the scores here, a couple of highlights from Mike's LinkedIn page. For 2K, he's the Director of Research and Planning. As part of creative development team, provide guidance and actionable insight to developers and marketers through feedback on milestones, concepts, narrative, features, and more. Business analyst and research consultant at Mosaic Research Management. Go-to consultant for hedge fund and investment groups looking to capitalize on emerging trends in video game industry or analyze buyout opportunities. And then finally, now again, McGid, leading the game team for one of the savviest, most influential media and entertainment research-based business strategy companies on Earth. We are the voice of the consumer and the home to courageous thinking and bold strategies that deliver not just big data, but human data. It's about action, not reaction. And you can absolutely see someone who is seeing video games this clearly and the state of the market this clearly and understanding the player experience this clearly, going on to becoming a very high-paid consultant to understand player behavior, game experience, and then on a even bigger industry trends, company trends, entertainment trends, and monetization and stuff like that. So it's you can see it all here in this one page. And again, for one page, it's a good bit of text.
Mm-hmm.
The screenshots are small, but they're there.
Yeah. And it packs a lot into what's probably, how many words is that? Like 400 words?
Yeah.
It's dense. It's like concise. It gets deep into like a complex point in like a short period of time.
They also, I like this. Part of the reason the screen caps are small, they're then numbered so they can put all the captions together in 2 chunks. So we get like 1, when there's a crowd in the paint, it's impossible to see what's going on. 2, the computer decides whether your player is going to dunk or shoot. 3, with the players' names on the screen, things get really jumbled. So there's 7 total screenshots like this, numbered, and you don't have to like collide a bunch of screenshots and a bunch of captions, right? So you get just a ton of information on here. So I am going to give this review 10 Luka Doncics with a goatee out of 10.
That's exactly what I was going to give it. Same scoring metric and everything. This is a fantastic review about like head and shoulders above what we're usually reading in these magazines. And that touches on really interesting industry trends. Yeah, exactly. Same place you're at.
It's really cool that we're both in the same place on this. And this is exactly why we do this show, to me, because that sentence stuck with me. I could easily give this game another 8.6, but I'm personally not satisfied with the state of basketball games in the market, and my scores are going to show it. And okay, yeah, like there's a million YouTubers nowadays that would give that same take, or people that pop off on X.com, the everything app, that same take, right? But who is saying it? What is their skin in the game? Why are they saying it? And immediately, So if NBA Action 97 comes up short, I'll give it the same tough treatment. You know, it's like going in and this goes to my thing is like when you have that transparency and that trust, you build your trust, you build credibility. You're not just taking shots at things for traffic. You're going, this is why I made this call. This is exactly how it fell short. And it's not because I don't like EA. It's not because I don't like this game. I've loved this game. But I know what I'm talking about, and I'm telling you, this is not a fun game. And you know, it doesn't deserve the rating that the market might just want me to give it to justify going out and buying it again just because it's the new NBA Live.
You know, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Yes.
Which is pretty much it, right? It's like he wants these games to be better because he loves them,
Yes.
right? He wants them to continue to evolve in ways that make the experience better. And that's what he's written about here. And you didn't see a lot of this in 1996.
No, you didn't. And it's stuck with me as a writer, as a creator, as a critic, everything ever since then. I wanted to shout it out. And I am so glad we got a chance to have this conversation. I'm so glad that you're with me on giving it the 10 out of 10. But do you agree with 10 out of 10? Luka Doncic with a goatee? Let us know. Leave our review at Apple Podcasts. Post it as a comment on YouTube. We will read the best ones on the air. And hey, go ahead and pass this show around to all your friends like it's third grade and we're on the playground. Shout us out on Blue Sky at funfactorpod.com or X, YouTube, and TikTok at FunFactorPod. Special thanks to Millennium Falck for all our amazing original music. Check out his work and his incredible Windows 95 website at millenniumfalck.com. Unlike the old magazines, you don't have to wait a whole month for your next installment. We're dropping new episodes every 2 weeks. So please go to funfactorpod.com to follow our show on your podcatcher of choice, and please consider becoming a member of FunFactor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord. Just go to funfactorpod.com, and I promise you will not miss the sign-up widget on our homepage. If you do, you and we will have a maximum score in FunFactor. Man, it's so weird whenever I bring up the YouTube channel while we're recording and I get one of us going, "Hey Ty," or "Hey Aiden," and like while we are talking to each other, it's always like, stop that.
Totally. Oh my gosh, 1,000 views.
Dang. All right, we are back. I started reading before I actually got the script lined up to where we're at.
I think it's the big thing that this is kind of silly, but
absolutely. And so now again, all right, let's finally move on into actual content. Page 14, in the link here. And
in the Flashback 64 episode that might have come up, but
yeah, I'm trying to remember because that wasn't. Did that come to? No, it was a different soccer game. Yeah. And that's actually, it's page 114, 115 on the text. Oh, interesting. This is 116. I'm looking at the archive now, and it looks like where I'm looking at, it says page 114, parenthesis 116 of 159. So on the pages is printed 114 and 115. So the actual review
that only starts when you hit page like 112.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, but I got it. If you can get past the poor control.
Oh wait, time out. I didn't finish editing this. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My time. Shout us out on Blue Sky, X, Utah. Good God. I'm gonna jump ahead because we've been an hour already, and we got to get to the actual review. So let's just do that. I forgot to mark what page it's on. It's like 70 something. Yes, because that's.
I don't even think my kids have started having lunch and stuff yet, so I'm not like in a super duper rush.
Okay.
It's kind of a soft hard out.